I'm counting. Megan is going to have to be late. So we have all the people who are intending to be here tonight. So I'm going to start the recording again. And
recording in progress.
Going to have us roll call in. So Mayor, you're on mute.
Mayor LaChapelle here.
Thank you. Shannon
Dunham here.
Lori
Garcia here.
Marin.
You're on mute, Marin.
Marin Goldstein here.
Ben
Hersey here.
and Cindy Kwasinski here. Megan Harvey is going to have to be late, but she will be here later on, so she is fine with us going on. Welcome to tonight's June 14th school committee meeting. I'm going to start with correspondence. This is Megan's piece, but she did send me some information. So hold on, let me find that and open that up. So these are Megan's words I'm reading. Thanks to everyone who has written to us. We read every email. It makes a big difference. We received many emails in the past 3 weeks about the budget. Many parents wrote to us in support of passing a budget that maintains level services in the district next year. Some wrote to us with action letters created by the community, and many added personal details about their time in the district. We thank each and every one of you for your emails. We received a total of 68 emails from, and I will begin to just read the names very quickly. Jenny Papa George, Sean Casey, Kira Henninger, Elise Langer, Lisa Swanson, Ree Migliozzi, Sarah Woodward, Doreen Bashista, Riley Hernandez, Melissa Ncampo, Carrie Southwick, Larry White, Elizabeth Staples, Kim Douglas, David Cantor, Drea Marks, Deb Friedman, Amanda Rosenberg, Janet Gagnon, hold on, I gotta scroll down, Lindley Green, Sue Red, Nicole Prouth, Karen Dupre, Jason Laguna, Lori Brown Laguna, Pilar Goldstein Day, Marianne Young, Megan Moynihan, Catherine Hobbs. I'm going to say this wrong and I don't want to. It's Hoang Fawn and Linda Capon. So I'm thinking it's Hong Fawn and Linda Capon. And I apologize if I have said that wrong. I did not hear how it was pronounced. So those are the people who wrote to us, and we do thank you for your emails. And as Megan said, we really do read them. So thank you. Let's go on to gifts. There is a motion to approve the donation of Caroline Shield from Shield Farms of plants for the EHS graduation stage.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So now y'all have shifted because people have come in. Lori
Garcia, aye.
Ben
Hersey, aye.
Mayor
LaChapelle, aye.
Shannon you're mute.
She knows. She's working on it.
Oh, sorry. I'll come back to you. Marin
Goldstein, aye.
Cindy Kwasinski, aye. Shannon
Dunham, aye. Sorry about that.
Yay, that worked well. Okay. And we do not have a student representative update because she graduated, happily so. So we are ready to open up public comment. I'm trying to do a bit of everything. So if I pause every once in a while, I am letting people in and trying to run the meeting. So public comment, I'm opening up. Please state your name and keep it to 3 minutes. And I'm hoping for a 15-minute limit, but it depends on how many people need to talk. So we'll see what happens. Is there anybody who would like to say anything? Signal now, and I will scroll through and see if I see anybody. All right. I am not seeing anyone's signal.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, so I am going to give it like, let me check what time it is, 6:07, not bad. All right, I am going to give it like 30 more seconds. I'm scrolling through one last time. If you have anything to say, this would be the time. And other than that, all right, I am going to close public speak. All right. So now we are on to presentations. And Dr. Leclerc, we have special ed and CPAC update.
Yes, which you have all been patiently waiting for, especially Ben has been the most patient. But we have Sarah Mochak, our Director of Special Education, with us tonight, and Evan Zemer, and I don't know if Amy Gogger is on the call. Okay.
She'll be coming.
Who are part of CPAC, so I'll let them jump in, but I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. This is a presentation that you had, the committee had requested about special education and our CPAC group, which is just starting to get ramped back up again after the pandemic. Cindy, I'm just killing time here. I think they need to have the screen shared. So if you could do that.
Just me, and then there's
Yeah.
some CPAC slides.
All set.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'll turn it over to Sarah.
All right, I'm gonna give it a whirl and see how I do. I'll sharing my screen. Okay, let's see. And now I'm gonna start the presentation. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Oh, all right. So I'm just gonna minimize this a little bit. One more thing, so I don't have to see anybody. Gets out of my way. So thank you for inviting me to, okay, sorry. I'm on my work computer at home, and I usually have a big monitor and a keyboard and a mouse to help me. So one more, okay, good. So thank you, for inviting me to come speak. This presentation is only focused on Mountain View and the changes that will be taking place next year. And I created this presentation with that in mind, and with the help of Amy Gogger and Evan Zemer. Evan is a parent of 2 kiddos at Maple, and Amy is a parent of students at Center Pepin, as well as a 2nd grade teacher. And we'll have some CPAC slides at the end. Did it switch? Did it go to the next screen? Great,
Yes.
thank you. I can see you, Allison. Thank you. So this is dense, and I got feedback years ago from a mentor who encouraged me to keep presentations, keep the slides with few words and do some explaining. But I'm going to share this with all of the members of the school committee. So I wanted you to have more context. So we use evidence-based practices with all of our students, regular ed and special education students. In like 2012, 2013, Massachusetts commissioned Thomas Hare, who is a professor at Harvard, to review the state's special education practices, particularly around inclusion. And at the bottom, when you get this, school committee members, you'll see at the bottom there's a link, and you'll be able to read the full Hare report that talks about the disparities that were found. But just to give a little bit of a context, we use the Hare report to enlist the help of CES and Sharon Jones, who was a former special education director. So she did a study of our district in, I think, 2016, 15 or 16. And she looked at a lot of the data points that were presented in the Hare report. And for the context, to provide some context, full inclusion is defined as a student spending 80% of their time or more in the general education setting. There's different classifications, partial inclusion, substantially separate. There's some different classifications, but full inclusion is 80% or more. And Julianne helped me with some of this data as well, Julianne Levin, our curriculum director. This school year, Easthampton students with IEPs made up 22.5% of our student population, compared to the state rate of 18.9. The state used to hover around 17%. The federally, special education students are around 14 or 15%. And I always wonder why we're so high. So, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about, and Julianne and I plan to really dig in and look at that next year, and what we can do to support students. Also next year, we will be focusing professional learning opportunities on strengthening our tiered system of supports. So there's 3 tiers, with special education being what we call tier 3. We do a pretty good job at tier 3, and we're going to be looking at improving and creating more robust opportunities at the tier 1 and tier 2 levels. So an important note, all special education services are not interrupted by these shifts that I'll be talking about. IEPs will be implemented in full, what I probably will say this a couple of times, the facilities at our elementary schools have really prevented us from adjusting our service delivery model. And if we had, a significant amount of money, we probably would have done things differently, but we didn't. So, the facilities prevented us from adjusting how we deliver academic services and, creating smaller specialized programs because we simply didn't have the room or the proper facilities. And Mountain View, as you probably all know, was carefully designed with thoughtful input from many stakeholders. And it was designed so all students can better access learning. And I would say this is particularly true for elementary age students. So what we have now and what we've been doing as related to as delivering academic services to students, there has been one special education teacher, and you'll see that I use SE to shorten special education. I never use the term SPED. It's one of my big pet peeves. When I first started working at Whitebrook, it was sort of years ago, it was sort of like something that kids said to speak badly about each other. And that really has stuck with me. So you'll probably never hear me say SPED. But what we have had is 3 teachers at each of the schools. So one at Maple, one at Center, and one at Pepin. And those teachers had to provide the instruction for all of the students with academic services on IEPs for 5 grade levels and usually 10 classrooms. And they had 2 paraeducators to support them. Their average caseload is 37. One teacher right now has 32 students on her caseload. And most of those services were provided in a separate setting outside of the classroom because it was just too hard to group students accordingly, given the 10 classrooms that special education teachers had to support. This past year, we added a 4th special education teacher through a grant. And that was one, to lessen the caseloads of the other 3 teachers, but also to work with some students with more significant needs who had much more service in the IEP. And many of those students will be heading into specialized programs next year. So what will it look like next year? There'll be 5 special education teachers strategically assigned to grades K through 5. There'll be 1 special education teacher for grade K and 1. That tends to be a lower number of students requiring academic services. So at this time, we'll be having 1 teacher. In grades 2 and 3 and grades 3 and 4, there'll be 2 special education teachers each. We thought about assigning 1 special education teacher to each grade, but then we looked at areas of expertise that some of those teachers had. We decided to group them because some have more specialized reading training, some have specialized math training. So we decided to group teachers so they could adjust how they deliver service and grouping students accordingly. And as we move through the next couple of years, we're really hoping to transition these services, more of these services to happen in the general education classroom. Of course, it'll depend on the IEP team because it is up to an IEP team to make a decision about what services are and where they take place. This model also lessens the caseload to around 20 students per special education teacher. Why? Why do we change? Shifting to only special education teachers providing academic services and to a narrower grade span, reducing to 2 grades down to 5 allows for more effective and efficient service delivery. And then restructuring by reducing the number of paraeducators, those 6 paraeducators that were supporting those teachers, allows us to create specialized programs that were not possible with our outdated facilities. And that average caseload of students is reduced, allowing for improved opportunities for consultation with colleagues and planning time with general education teachers. We know that a true co-teaching model and like real inclusion opportunities require lots of consultation and common planning time. Our preschool program right now, we have 2 half-day integrated preschool programs with 2 paraeducators in each. And then we assign additional paraeducators based on individual student need. We are adding a full-day integrated preschool program, and that program will also have 2 paraeducators. And again, we'll assign additional paraeducators based on individual student need. I think it's important to know which students have access to a full-day program. We're targeting those students who are in their last year of preschool. So they'll be 4 years old, generally. Some are already 5 or will be 5. And also, preschool is a special education service. So the student has to require an increase in special education services related to their disability. It's not a lottery system for the students with IEPs. It is based on student need. And there will also be 8 peer partners in that program. And the other 2 half-day integrated preschool programs can also have up to 8 peer partners. The total number of students with IEPs is 7. And we had a full-day program and then we closed it because our numbers were down significantly. Our enrollment was down. Preschool enrollment is way up, as are the needs of the students have become more significant. So it's, I'm excited that we can reopen this full-day preschool option. And it also helps with peer partners as well. It's sometimes hard for families to only enroll their child as a peer partner in a half-day program. At the elementary level, we have some specialized programs already. We have the RISE program, which is for students with intensive and overlapping needs related to autism, intellectual disability, and other developmental disabilities. And that's for students in pre-K and K. Our SOAR program is the companion program for RISE. So the same same student needs, just in grades 1 through 4. And then in our LEAP, that should say K through 4. In our current LEAP program, which services students in grades K through 4, is an elementary program for students with social emotional needs. None of these programs existed before I took over as director, and we were sending, K students with intensive needs related to autism to out-of-district placements. So we've been able to create really wonderful programs, and it's allowed our students to stay in their communities. So one of the reasons why, so a change is adding an additional LEAP program for students in K to 2, and then there'll be another program for students in grades 3 to 5. This year we had to place a student. So originally LEAP was intended to be only for students in grades 1 through 4. There's a 48-month age span, which is a regulation federal regulation. The students can't be more than 48 months apart in age. So we had to place a kindergarten student in the LEAP program this year based on his needs. And we had to seek a waiver from the state. And you have to, when you get that waiver, you have to tell them how you're going to rectify that situation. We did get the waiver granted through the end of the year. And, with the caveat that we were creating a program that would service all ages of students at the elementary level. And then a couple of years ago at the middle school level, we created a program we called AIM. Right now it's servicing students in grades 5 through 8 and has a focus on supporting students with language-based and other similar language-based learning disabilities and other similar disabilities. And we will be adding a grades 3 to 5 AIM program. The middle school academic services. So I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working here since 1997, and I spent the first several years of my career at White Brook. And we were doing this then. We were really ahead of the game, way back when. So most of the academic services at the middle school are provided through a co-teaching model. So there is a special education teacher and a general education teacher in most language arts and math classes. So if there are students with IEPs who need academic services in a language arts class or a math class, there is also a special education teacher. And this will continue. Some students have received specialized reading instruction from a teacher who, my dog is sneezing, if you can hear that in the background, that is duly certified as a special education teacher and a reading specialist. And that teacher has very specific reading training in lots of different methods, so she can support students right at their point of need. And there'll be one special education teacher for each grade, grades 6, 7, and 8, and then that reading specialist will continue for grades 6 through 8. The special programs at the middle school, there are no programmatic changes other than a little bit of a grade shift. The STEP program, formerly called DLC, is the companion program to Rise and Soar. So for students with, oh boy, she needs to go out. Let's see if I can get her to calm down. So these students have intellectual disabilities, autism, and other overlapping disabilities that require a parallel curriculum. And then PACE for students in grades 6 through 8. It used to be called BEST. It's a companion program to the 2 LEAP programs. It's designed for students with social emotional challenges that have created barriers for them finding success in the general education setting. And then I already talked about the AIM program, which is for students in grades 6 through 8 who have language-based learning disabilities and other similar disabilities. District-wide, we have a program called our Student Support Program. This is an inclusive program, inclusive support program for students with social emotional challenges, but they, with some supports, they are able to find success in the general education classroom. So there's a teacher that runs the student support program at each school, and there are paraeducators assigned to work with those teachers to support the students in their general education classrooms. This is not a program where students go. This is a program where we support students where they are. And also, the SSP teacher may act as a liaison for a student that requires one-to-one staffing related to mobility needs, and they oversee those paraeducators assigned to those students. At Mountain View, there'll be 3 SSP teachers, one for grades K to 2, one for 3 to 5, and one for 6 to 8. And right now there are 13 paraeducators assigned to work with the student support program in grades K through 8. And we add more as needed to support the needs of students. And there are 2 additional paraeducators that are assigned as one-to-ones for students with mobility issues. And then paraeducator support in the general education setting. So the primary function of paraeducators is to support the social emotional needs of our students under the direction of that student support teacher and in collaboration with the general education teacher. These supports include academic support, facilitating positive peer interactions, assisting the student in implementing the self-regulation strategies that they've learned, and then keeping data to monitor behavior as well. Oh, Evan, this is you. I'll mute so my dog will stop.
Do you want to pause for any questions in your segment before switching to CPAC?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead, Ben.
I
I'm so
really
sorry about
no
that,
worries,
dog.
no worries. I love the number, like you said, 20 students per special ed teacher in Mountain View. That's a pretty good number, and I'm just curious, what's the ratio of special ed teachers to students in other districts? Do we have like data on that at all?
So I think that I had said last time that I hadn't polled districts in a while.
Yeah.
But the last time I did it, it's maybe four or 5 years ago, and it was, maybe between 15 to 18. I don't know what it is now. We're closer.
Okay,
Better than 32.
that's helpful.
Any other questions before we move to CPAC?
I have 20, so that's
Yeah.
a pretty reasonable number.
And with two teachers supporting, it would be 40 students, right? So 2 teachers supporting 40 students, that allows for so much more effective and efficient grouping of students. So, we're happy to get to that number.
If there aren't any more questions, we'll start with Evan.
So Amy couldn't join us, just some family things that popped up. So it's just me tonight. When my kiddo first started at Maple Preschool, we'd started receiving emails from Sarah Mochek saying, parents come, caregivers come get together. And annually, Sarah would sit us down at a table and tell us how there wasn't a CPAC. And if anybody was willing to start a CPAC, it would be really nice. And my spouse and I both looked at each other sort of like wide-eyed, like, yeah, we need one of those, but we don't know anything. But through the relationships that have been built, especially working with Amy Gauger, who's a second grade teacher, I feel like we're moving into having the capacity that we've needed. This is from our draft bylaws. We've gotten as far as draft bylaws that need to actually formally adopt Dane, and then we need an election. But by law, we understand that our role is to be available to advise you, the school committee, and to meet regularly with school officials, primarily Sarah Mochek, to advise and participate in planning, development, and evaluation. Doesn't mean that, we have all the answers, but we've got maybe some useful information as parents and caregivers. We're actually hoping to develop relationships with students as well. We also have a duty to provide particular educational forums to parents, and we have other ideas but more educational forums that could be helpful. And then we want to build communication between families and the schools, and we want to create opportunities for informal and formal support. And that just is, I think, a function of the meetings that we've had. We've addressed certain business, and then people are coming to ask questions and say, how do I manage this particular thing? I think the biggest thing that's just clear right now from the get-go is that many people, and I'll include myself in this, when there's a challenge with our students' services and the complex network, it's not just a classroom teacher, there's a complex network of people supporting our kids, how to manage who to talk to about what, when, and how, it isn't as complicated, is more complicated than it would be if it's my neurotypical child who I just can reach out to the classroom teacher. So we're working on how to support parents in better navigating that. And Sarah has been a great partner in helping us figure that out. That's the next slide, Sarah. And can you talk a little bit about the legal situation, which I don't really understand? I just have read this paragraph before.
Sure. So a CPAC is required of school systems, and we have, as in prior to my tenure as director, it started fizzling out, and we haven't been able to, get anything up and running. So I'm grateful to Amy and Evan in partnering with me to get this moving. But there are lots of, things that a CPAC is supposed to do. Evan touched on some of those. And, with this, so used to be every 6 years, the department would monitor our compliance with all of the special education regulations. Now they broke it up. Now it happens every 3 years and they monitor different things every 3. We're just about to submit our self-assessment for this next round of our monitoring to the department. And this is now when, in this round, where we're required to talk about our CPAC. So I'm so excited that, we'll probably be partially compliant or partially complete with implementing this regulation and this standard. So that makes me, really excited. And a CPAC is both an advisory and a participatory function. So we've had 2 meetings this year. One was a hybrid meeting and one we ended up just doing virtually. But I go and stay and answer questions, or maybe we'll talk about a topic and then I leave, right? And allow the parents to have a forum where they can say things that they might not say if I was there. And then, Evan types up the notes and then we present them. But this is a requirement of school systems. And one of the things that we're required to do is offer a basic rights training every year. Sometimes we partner with other area school districts. Sometimes we've hosted it and we've gotten families from other school districts to come to ours. We partnered with, and I wish I could remember now, maybe it was Northampton, but I don't recall right now off the top of my head who we partnered with for our basic rights training this year.
So when Amy and I met with Sarah in December, we had our goal to do this humanely, that we're volunteers and we know the school staff it's been a year, right? So we've just every turn there's been all right, we might not hit that. We've just tried to be kind to ourselves. It turned out that June had a lot of things on Thursdays and so we kicked our election and bylaw meeting till later in the summer for that reason. We'd love to have more people involved. You can email us. We have an address there, and reach out to the special education office. So we'll be adopting our formal bylaws, holding elections. I don't know if anybody actually wants leadership besides Amy and I. We've got a few people who are willing to take small roles, but we'll see how that goes. And Carrie Goldenberg is on deck for a late summer, early fall event, and we'll schedule that basic rights and education. And we'd love you, the school committee, to be involved. I know that many districts have a formal liaison from the school committee, but we also know this hasn't been around for a while and would really welcome perhaps some, rotation through. Come meet the parents who are working on this and hear the kinds of things that we're dealing with and what we're trying to figure out. Yeah, any questions for Amy and I? I guess I can't answer for Amy though.
Me, I'm just really happy to see this starting. I think it is a hard thing to get going. And so the fact that you're getting there and you already have things planned, I think is really crucial.
Yeah, I want to thank you very much for coming out too and getting this going. It's definitely a big thing to have that sort of step between our program at the school department and to parents. I do remember some of those early meetings from many years back participating. So I would say if you could send me when you're, or if you want to even announce right now when your next meeting is real quickly, if maybe I missed it, then I can try to attend that with you all. So please reach out when you have a meeting scheduled then.
We'll send it to you.
Thank you.
You'll send it to the whole school committee, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can.
Could we also get that presentation too? I would love to take another look at the slides you guys showed. Yeah, I feel very excited about this. I think it's going to be a pretty fantastic resource for families, and I'm very excited and grateful that you are taking up this work. I think a huge benefit to students and families in the district. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to have Evan and Amy to partner with, to to help bring parents' voice right to this, to what we're doing. We collaborate with parents all the time, but it's only based on their individuals, usually based on just their child or children. And this allows, we can cast a wider net with I was going to say fully functioning CPAC, but I'll say, functioning, say CPAC. And the one thing that I wanted to say too, that I'm not sure I really touched on, or something that's really important to me in my role and being, having spent so much of my career here in Easthampton is, really looking to continue to improve services for students, right? And I know that if I were to ask some of the schools who are implementing a really effective co-teaching model, they have, one special education teacher for like a couple of classrooms. There's a school in Boston called the Henderson School. It's a really wonderful school. I'd encourage you all to look it up. And the state points to them all the time. I think each classroom has 2 teachers in it, or many classrooms have 2 teachers in it, a general education teacher and a special education teacher. And so we're going to be really taking the next 3 years to investigate what we're doing and how we can improve. Of course, we'll be really dependent on funding, how we can move forward with really implementing all we want to implement. But Julianne and I are going to move everybody slowly through this process. And hopefully, we'll be able to just continue to to bring what we do to that next level of excellence. Thank you for asking for me to come tonight and for including Evan and Amy and our CPAC. Much appreciated. I always am so happy that you all ask about special education. And I'm happy to see Shannon back because she always asks about special education. It makes me so happy. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you,
Sarah.
Sarah. Sarah Mutrick's been such a great partner for all of us and working on this. Amy brings some expertise as teacher and parent. I mainly bring ignorance and therefore lots of questions. And really, Sarah's been so great to work with. So I hope that you invite us back. I think we're supposed to the CPAC is supposed to report at least once a year to you. So we'll let you know if there's anything we need to report, or you can nudge us to say, hey, now's a good time.
Evan, I will tell you, I've spoken to you many, many times and seen your energy. There is no way that you are not an incredible member of the CPAC. So I'm very glad to have you there.
I second that.
Me too.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, superintendent update. Do you have announcements?
I do have an announcement that I wanted to share with everyone. Earlier this year, I sought an earmark from Senator Velas and Representative Carey for some upgrades in our some safety things at the high school. And Representative Carey just was not able to secure it. My request kind of came in too late for their budget. And Senator Velas, though, I'm happy to report, was able to secure $40,000 for Easthampton High School to do some security upgrades. So I wanted to share that with the group tonight. We have about $150,000 worth of upgrades that are needed. So this will get us started. It won't get us all the way where we need to go, but it will be phase 1 of improvements that we need to make. So I wanted to share that with everyone and thank Senator Velas for his hard work and thank Representative Carey for being the cheerleader. That was really encouraging us to work with the senator because we were kind of too late on their side. So I wanted to share that with everyone. That's all I have.
Excellent. So, subcommittee updates. Do we want to start with finance, Maren?
Sure. So I was actually just trying to figure this out. I think we've at least met twice, if not 3 times, since the last school committee meeting, mostly around a topic that we'll be touching on shortly here, on negotiations between city council and the mayor and school committee on trying to find a path forward with our budget. And so I won't take up time here, but we've been discussing that as a committee level. There was no proposal that we would be approving from the school committee, from the finance subcommittee. So it's just something that we've reviewed and discussed and had a chance to look at, but we'll discuss it as the full committee here shortly. So that's been the primary topics. We did plan on having a sort of closing of FY22 discussion tonight, actually, but because of the FY23 negotiations, that sort of took our time and took the attention of our business manager. So we weren't able to have that yet. We do look forward to having Nick starting here shortly. And so we'll be scheduling a meeting probably in August, just to sort of get everybody on the same page and get a chance to meet each other and move forward. So August at latest, we'll be meeting as a group again. So thank you very much.
Do we have any other subcommittee updates? Ben, the collaborative met. Do you have an update from there?
No update. We were just going through policy updates that they had done. Nothing significant to speak of.
Okay, great. All right, Lori?
Just a quick update that we met again with our Safe Routes to School coordinator, and this time we had members of our Easthampton Police Department on the call with us because we are discussing crossing guards for the start of the year, with so many new grades that will be attending our beautiful new Mountain View School. So I just wanted to give a heads up to everybody that we are going to be doing a walking assessment to see where crossing guards will be needed. And there will be a survey going out this summer. So parents will be able to let us know if you have certain concerns about where your students would be walking and riding and needing a crossing guard. We were very happy to hear that the Easthampton Police Department, who funds the crossing guards, will continue to fund all 8 that are available at the schools now. So thank you so much to them. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, any other? Okay, so now we're going to go on to the discussion of the FY 2023 budget. So I just want to give a little bit of history of what's been going on. We had a budget that we approved. The mayor had a budget that she put forth to city council, and it is smaller than what we had needed. So a lot of work has gone in the last few weeks to try to figure out what to do and how to fix the problem. There's a roughly a $560,000 difference, and that is quite significant when the majority of our budget is staff. So that's been the panic. So historically, over the last few weeks, school committee members have begun reaching out to the city and working with city councilors and trying to figure out some common ground, some solutions to these problems. The mayor has been a part of some of these meetings. I know there were a few people who thought we kind of left Megan and Ben out by themselves to work on this. And I can tell you, everybody has been working on this night and day to try to settle this down. So, Mayor, you raised your hand already?
Yes. Thank you for the history, Chair. At this point, I do want to register 2 open meeting law complaints. One, that the discussion of this agreement is not an agreement nor negotiation. It was a statement of good intent and collaboration, and any signature would not be on the behalf of either legislative bodies, either school or city council, because we weren't doing this as a public process, but a good faith agreement to go forward in some more of a collaborative method. To how this discussion is listed on the school committee agenda is general and similar to other topics around the budget without specificity. I would also ask to see how the item was discussed in the finance committee meeting, if it was on the agenda and how is it termed, and if it was termed as an official conversation or document. That would be incorrect from the email train that was started by school committee members. The conversation of the document over the last day or 2 also is a violation of open meeting law, as we had a quorum of our finance committee on that email stream, which reasonably would affect conversations of budget and matters that will become before the finance committee meeting. That's all I'll say for now. I realize, just on a statement as a mayor, I appreciate the advocacy and the work of every parent, teacher, staff member on this call around this issue. However, that does not supplant public process. And I will be very candid on my thoughts on Facebook. To think right now that on Facebook, somebody is typing, if not many people typing, that the mayor is doing this to block an agreement, non-binding agreement, or to retaliate against school committee or school staff. I'm the mayor of 16,000 people, many committees, as well as I'm financially responsible for the budget, including school. I have no doubt that the budget that I have proposed, not with the increase asked for by the superintendent and school committee, but as I put forward, is more than adequate, and that there is additional money coming from the state who has not paid their fair share for decades. It is not my responsibility, nor any other department, to give up extra money to fit a request of one department. That's really all I have to say. And I would encourage that the discussion around this negotiation remain off of this agenda and moved to another discussion at another time where the public can see if the letter or the terms are being discussed publicly, that the letter and all versions are posted at least 48 hours before a meeting discussing them. Thank you.
Okay, wait a minute. Now I'm confused. Okay, so your first point. The email chain that I think you're talking about began with Tom Peak sending information, not school committee. Tom Peak and Omar have been working with school committee members and with the mayor to come up with an agreement. And I think what happened is that Tom left Megan's name, even though Megan was not part of the second meeting. So there were 2 separate meetings, one with Ben and Megan, and one with myself and Ben. So that's where I think the confusion came along. I'm trying to understand what you were talking about in terms of the agreement. I understand it is the 3 of us who are on that letter to make a good faith agreement, which I have not gotten to yet, as to how we will go forward. And that is the proposal of what we were talking about. But it is still something that the city, the school committee should hear, just as the city council intends to share that agreement with city council tomorrow night. So go ahead, Mayor.
Just in response to the breach of open meeting law and quorum, the email thread I referred to started at 12 p.m. today. That included the superintendent, yourself, Megan Harvey, Tom Peak, Omar, myself. I do believe that to have two members of the finance committee on an email chain is a violation of open meeting law. And that thread from noon all the way down included substantial changes of a document that we're about to talk about or may talk about. And those changes weren't looked at by all the members because they were working and whatnot. But we have 4 or 5 emails, including myself responding, that are discussing a document that's reasonably on a school committee agenda that
Okay.
that has a quorum has a quorum of our finance committee.
I was not on that. I did not enter into conversation on that chain because I was at work. But my understanding is Megan dropped out as soon as she was made aware that she was on a chain that she needed to stop. Is that correct, Megan? Yeah. So as soon as she understood the chain that had been created, that was ended. And I don't believe anybody answered initially. I'm guessing the only people who probably read and answered that is Dr. LeClaire and Megan. I'm assuming. I do not know. But let's go beyond that. So we created, we had a meeting. We sat around and created what we thought would be a vision and a coming together of minds between school committee and city council so that we could make good faith agreements to go forward as a team. That was my experience on Friday, that the idea was that school committee, the mayor's office and city council would work together to really have one vision. And that vision is the health of the city and the school district. And that one of the things that came out of those meetings is an understanding that there's a lot of confusion about the school budget. And the purpose of the agreement that we were coming up with partially was to have the city and the school committee talk to each other and create an avenue for communication that would help the city to help us. Now, in terms of sharing it on this, it is part of our budget conversation. It is part of the FY 2023 conversation to talk about this agreement because the agreement has to do with our budget. So that's where I'm confused, Mayor.
The agreement is not a normal part of the budget process and also is not binding of any terms. As well, the intent was collaboration between city and the schools. And I just believe it doesn't fall under the FY 2023 agenda item.
I don't
if I could just add one point, just to be possible here, is that currently our FY 23 budget that was approved through school committee is different from the budget that you put forward. So in that much we can agree, correct? So what we are trying to do right now, and why I think that this topic is about how to bridge the gap between what our approved budget is and what the budget that you are seeking approval through the city council. So that's why this conversation includes a proposal that's being worked on by a small group. Not, it should not include any quorums, and that was the reason why a small team was chosen. And that's what's seeking to be worked on right now.
The next action on the budget by our charter is a vote of city council. I look at that agreement as a good faith effort going forward. I would also note that a promise I made outside of that agreement, because it is a binding action on the city and from my office, is I gave President Gomez today a request to create a school stabilization account that specifically will address gaps in level service budgets. And I did that before June 30th in good faith, so it could be directly funded next fiscal year rather than waiting until after July, and then you have to wait for another year. I mean, I think that this body, I would just like to say as a member of the body, I abstain and strongly object to the conversation on this, and we'll follow up with the state. And I want that on record. And now it is.
So Cindy, if I can add one thing also to this piece, I do think that based on the conversations that have been happening already, it does make sense that with the issues that have been raised, that this continue as a small group to review and discuss this document, as opposed to something that is to be raised at this committee level. And I know in particular, City Council is obviously not a part of this conversation. And so the concept of any sort of ongoing negotiation at this committee level right now appears to be not appropriate, because not all the right party is involved, if that makes sense. And that an additional meeting happen of that small group to be able to continue the conversation about this document and about the final wording of any particular line item.
Just to add to that, Cindy, I feel, I don't know if apology is the right word, but the conversation that we're having now must be, I think, for a lot of folks, very confusing and in the weeds technically. And I think that that's another reason why this conversation shouldn't happen now, and that we're in violation of open meeting law, but also of confusing the public about budget process and what can happen.
So where are you seeing the violation with us talking about clearly we are talking about the budget in this agreement, and in all of our meetings with you, we were talking about the FY23 2023 budget, and it's in that particular document that we're talking about the budget. So to discuss it openly, I do not understand where you are seeing an open meeting law violation, because it falls underneath the discussion of our budget. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around why.
I mean, I think it's something for the state to decide, but specifically in the open meeting law, it talks about agenda topics that are being too general. This letter was reasonably anticipated and could have been added to an agenda 48 hours before. The Attorney General strongly suggests that discussion be postponed when there is any idea that the public was not fully informed. The conversations that we were having certainly, hopefully, would result in a signed document today, and they were not. The budget process, I will say again, does not include a quote unquote a negotiation between any bodies of the government. That's in addition to the budget process. And that is that it goes to a city council vote next. So that's something novel. I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened, but it's novel. If I looked at, oh, they've talked about the fiscal year 23. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but I mean, my concern comes right out of the law.
Okay, so to wrap my head around it, you don't want us talking about this, this agreement that we all worked on. And you want to table the conversation until another meeting where it is specifically listed.
I just don't like the tone of the conversation, really, Cindy. It becomes yet again personal. I. It's a responsibility of the mayor and also under law to bring this to the attention of the public. So do I want to? No, I've issued my I've issued my concerns. I've done this before on the first budget vote that I did not feel met open meeting law and our charter. And if it needs to be personally, pinned to me, so be it. But
Well, I'm not
these
talking
are
about
pretty
please,
clear.
please.
I don't want to, and why not postpone the conversation until after the city council vote? What's the point?
Okay, Allison?
Thank you. So I do have just a couple things. I do agree with the mayor. This is unprecedented. This situation is new territory, and there's not a clear roadmap. And I want to clarify something that I'm not sure the mayor is aware of. She may be, but the reason this was brought to the full committee for discussion, and whether we discuss it or not is another piece, but because this is so unusual, the advice from legal counsel and from the State Board of Superintendents is that I should not sign any document. It should be a vote of the school committee to have the school committee chair sign the document. I don't know if you're aware of that piece of information or not, but that was one of the reasons that this was coming to the group. I am not going to be the one that, puts myself on the line for this issue. Again, to your point, this is not about me personally. This is a school district issue. And the third point that I would make is tomorrow is a significant day in school districts. June 15th is the day I need to hand out pink slips if I don't have a budget, if I don't have a balanced budget. I am fiscally responsible to do that. That's what you, as the school committee, put me in charge of doing. Now, some communities have a contract that speaks to that date much earlier. Our contract is silent. When it is silent, June 15th is the last day you would do that. And personally, I would have done it sooner because teachers need to find other jobs if we're not going to be keeping them on. It's the right thing to do. So I don't have the luxury of waiting until after tomorrow night because I have a $560,000 gap. So I need to figure out what I need to figure out. And, I may be using some school choice funds to bring up that deficit, but, I need to have that solution in place for tomorrow. So I'm under a different timeline. So those are just my points.
I would just say that there's a legal question because if the budget doesn't pass, do you have a budget at all? My understanding is it stops on July 1. Also, I thought that the normal school practice was once we got to fall, the bottom line number that comes out of the city budget is reallocated between salary and expense depending on student need. Although I understand very clearly the timelines documented in the collective bargaining agreement. I definitely understand that. So I think the timelines, there are quite a few here.
Okay, I have one last question. So you, just before this meeting, signed the letter, the proposal between city council, the mayor, and school committee. Omar signed it. So there are 2 signatures. And yet what I'm hearing from you is that you don't think we should talk about this, even though you signed it and city council signed it. I really had a very different vision of how tonight was going to go. And now I'm trying to understand, can you tell me why you signed it and city council signed it, but you don't want it mentioned tonight? I don't
Yeah,
understand that.
It's the document that I signed tonight after talking to you was the original agreement that we all, the good faith agreement, non-binding on all parties when we all met together.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm fine signing that. I then got, and I understand you were at work, but then I got 2 other versions of it that for consideration, and I wasn't in agreement with them. When we finally talked, you said, look, there's no other versions. It's the one that we put together and that, minor changes, but I saw the changes in these 2 versions afterwards as substantial. I mean, I'm fine to keep up my good faith part of this, as is, I'm assuming President Gomez, I'm not going to speak to him. And I would hope, Cindy, that you would sign that as well. That's the agreement we all talked about.
Right, but why is it that you don't want us to talk about it?
It's because it's an open meeting law issue. It's not on, this is a novel, right? I mean, I agree with the superintendent. This is not a part of our budget process. To put it on the agenda just as a part of the budget, I think is misleading to the public. I saw this document as a non-binding document in goodwill due to concerns of parents, school committee, and city council that President Gomez agreed to present at city council tomorrow. There's no public notice. It's not that I do or not. I mean, there's just no public notice of that document on the school committee's agenda.
Allison?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the weeds with it. I think that we did have a meeting, we did have a discussion, we had agreed upon points. But I think it's fair to say that outside of the meeting, you need to wait to review a document that, you get 15 hours later, 20 hours later, you need to see if it did indeed capture what you thought it was going to capture. You need to go through legal counsel, and I'm sure the mayor would say the same thing. She has legal counsel on the city side. We have legal counsel on the school committee side. We need to do our due diligence. And there were some things that just needed to be tweaked. So we don't have to go into that tonight, but I would not recommend a signature from the school committee on the original version of the document.
So the good faith conversation at that meeting now is null. The city came to the table, talked about the points, signed the letter that we agreed on, as did President Gomez. And we sit here before the public right now in good faith, a non-binding agreement that cannot be signed around collaboration between the school committee, the city council, and the mayor's office.
But you're the
It is
one
what it
telling
is.
us not to talk about it and sign it.
We should not. This is already way past talking about it, Cindy. The signature
No,
had nothing
because
to do.
we haven't
The signature,
shared
the
it with
signature
anybody.
had, you have signed things on the behalf of this committee before, and you can now, and it is not bound upon the body you represent. The same thing with President Gomez.
I understand that. But
Right,
you
so
don't want us talking about it. That's my confusion. Megan?
I just am wondering if I can get a point of clarification. My understanding of the process was that the wording of the letter had to be voted on and agreed by school committee before the school committee chair would be able to sign it. That was my understanding from legal counsel on the school committee side. Is that correct? Can we get a yes or no on if that is correct?
That is my understanding, that we present it to the school committee, we talk about it, and then I sign it.
Then we are in a catch-22 of there, unless I'm misunderstanding something, please correct me if I'm not. Like, we can't post a letter before we've agreed on the terms and voted that our chair should sign it, but we can't talk about it until we post the letter. Please help me clarify and understand.
It just needs to be on the agenda that there will be a good faith discussion of a good faith letter. It's not, I mean, my point with the letter and discussing it, it's just not on the agenda. That's
But
it.
it's not, but it is, okay.
Yeah, I
Many
mean, this is
things
up to
come
the
in-
state. Yeah.
Many things come into an agenda under a category. The category is all inclusive of a particular item. The category has never been item by item by item for us. The difference is, I mean, we're talking about subcommittee meetings where we're just talking about Mountain View School or the high school budget. That's different. But even then, we're not listing the entire items that are there. You're listing I'm just flabbergasted. I really am, because I thought what we would do is just present this and talk about it. And I thought this would be a very positive meeting where we would be talking about how much communication and collaboration we are creating within the city. That's what I thought tonight would be. So I don't understand why it does not fit in this conversation. It is unusual, but it's blessedly unusual because it's a letter of collaboration. It's not something completely out of the ordinary. It's collaboration within the city around the budget. So I'm at a standstill. Lori?
Dr. Leclerc, is it possible for you to text our legal counsel and ask his opinion? I don't know.
I
if
already
he's available.
I spoke to legal counsel this afternoon and was informed that I didn't ask about how it should appear on the agenda. So full disclosure, I did not ask that. However, it was clear that the document needed to be discussed in open session. It needed to have a full school committee vote in open session before the chair of the school committee could sign it. So I am positive on those 2 points, but I did not, in all fairness, I did not ask how it should be labeled on the agenda. And I know he is in negotiations this evening, so I'm not sure I could get an answer. Is that what your question is, though?
Yes, that was my question, because I really do agree with Cindy that many times we put something on the agenda that is like in broad strokes, and we can talk about it because it is mentioned. But I'm not the attorney here, so.
Can I make an offer? How about we take a committee vote about whether or not we will proceed with this conversation and a discussion in order to approve the negotiated letter, and so then we can decide it as opposed to talking about it.
Megan?
The other thing that I have absolutely no idea if this is a possibility, but I wanted to make sure this was out before we take any vote of any sort, that potentially another path forward would be to make sure this gets on the agenda properly, to call an emergency meeting, which would require that the city council agrees to delay their vote on the budget as well and push everything back. I see that as one other possibility.
Well, we could do an emergency meeting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So we could do an emergency meeting and vote on this before city council. The likelihood of us being able to push back and request the city council postpone this, I think would not be, first off, it's definitely not in our power to do that. And, I don't think that we should be requesting the city to make that change.
I suspect that city councilors are listening and pondering many of the same questions that we are thinking about. I would, at this point, recommend that we call an emergency meeting and have it properly on the agenda so that there can be nothing that comes back later about this budget process. I would like for it to be as airtight as possible.
Well, the mayor is saying that we need 48 hours for the item to be on the agenda. However, with an emergency meeting, I don't think that's necessary. As long as we.
I agree on the emergency meeting.
You agree on the emergency meeting?
Yeah, I can't imagine that emergency meeting regulations change between school committee and city council. I would, defer to Barbara, or Sue or whatnot, but I don't think that those are different.
So you're saying we still need 48 hours?
No, I'm saying that an emergency meeting suspends that requirement if it's of urgent need.
Okay.
Just like the
I
city
wanted to
council
make
does the
sure.
same thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I have no problem if we want to table this till tomorrow afternoon. So do we have a time?
City council starts at 5 o'clock.
I thought city council meetings started at 6. Sub-finance usually
At 6.
starts at 5.
Maybe I put up the wrong thing then.
I think it's 6.
Yeah.
Can we do 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock is fine
Yeah.
with me.
That sounds great.
Or earlier?
I-
I'm just asking, what's the earliest?
It's my last day of school. I can't walk out.
I'm unavailable tomorrow. You'll have to proceed without me.
Okay.
I can do any time tomorrow.
Okay. So why don't we say,
Is there a reason it can't be at 4 o'clock?
I suspect I have enough time to iron out
I was
issues.
just thinking it would take us a while, but I was just trying to give optimal time. But whatever you want.
Well, I mean, if we're having a meeting tomorrow, there's going to be no renegotiations. So there's no opportunity for to engage the mayor. There's no opportunities to engage the Councilor Omez. So I think that if we're waiting till then, either some other meeting has happened between now and then, and we're reviewing a final document, which is possible. There could be another meeting of a small group between now and then. Or we're basically accepting the letter as is at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And just approving a signature.
I'm fine with 3. I'm fine with 4. I do think 3 gives us more time to talk. But I'm fine with either.
I would like clarification on Maren's point. I think that's a big point to make clear, whether or not tomorrow there will be negotiation in that, let's say 3 o'clock. If during 3 o'clock, we will negotiate and agree on different wording, and the mayor and the superintendent and the city council president and the chair of the school committee will agree to it, and we'll move forward that, or if it's just a meeting about the letter that was drafted and sent out on Monday.
Well, what I would say is we will be at that point, the only thing that we can do is approve a letter that will be signed prior to city council's discussion of, the budget. So all we're going to be doing is approving. Now, what can happen between now and that meeting is that if there is a desire and a will to be able to have additional conversation to try to clarify the letter, because the letter does contain some confusing language that I think the mayor would probably like to review and have some changes to, because it's recommending review of the entire city finances. So you may not want the auditor to review all of city finances. So there might be a reason to have that small group get together either this evening or tomorrow before our meeting. But by the time we meet, the only thing that can happen at that point is approval of the letter as is and approval of Cindy's signature. So I don't think we need 3 hours to meet, or think that there's going to be any other renegotiations after that point.
Thank you. I agree that the path forward would seem to be a smaller meeting before to iron out the wording of the letter, and then a meeting, an emergency school committee meeting tomorrow at either 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
Let's do 4. Let's do 4. Mayor, is that good for you?
Yes, I cannot speak for city councilors though.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Also, school committee is going to meet at 4 o'clock tomorrow for an emergency meeting to review final language of the letter. And it is on to the small team to determine if you're able to meet in advance of that and have any other further conversation and negotiation over the language. And that's up to the parties included in that small team.
Tomorrow's agenda is the current letter that I have for discussion with.
I would say it's the final letter that's going to be approved and signed by all parties involved. That way it allows for for the opportunity. I can't speak to, if the mayor is willing to meet, I can't speak to your schedule. I can't speak to the city council president's schedule, but if there's an opportunity for
that would require Omar and Tom being there.
Correct. Well, no, I'm saying before that. That's not at the 4 o'clock meeting. Our meeting at 4 o'clock is entirely to approve final approval of the letter that has been negotiated and ready for signature.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend and request that the small team get together between now and then and discuss the changes that have been proposed. And there's some language in the RFP and there's some language in what the finances are that I personally think are open-ended.
I agree.
So I think it's to everyone's advantage, to everyone's best interests to look at that language and to reconfirm what the best language everybody should be signing to. I'm not on that team, so I'm not going to say any particular piece of that, but I'm just saying I recommend that the parties involved, the mayor, yourself, council president, and other people involved, Thomas Peak, Councilor Peak, come together and review that to tighten that language up. I think it's in everybody's best interest to tighten up some of that
That's what I
language.
hear you say. Okay, so you're proposing an earlier meeting. Otherwise, we will be discussing the one that we have. But an earlier meeting.
Cindy, you're not understanding me. I'm sorry.
Change it.
I apologize to interrupt. What I'm saying is the meeting that the school committee is having tomorrow at 4 o'clock is to approve the letter, whatever letter it is. It could be the letter that's currently has 2 signatures on it. It could be a revised letter that is reviewed by the small team and the signatures are added to it before 4 o'clock. Whatever letter comes to us at 4 o'clock is the one that we'll be approving or looking to approve.
Correct. So if nothing else comes to us, the letter we're going to be looking at is the one with the 2 signatures. We're hoping for a previous meeting to discuss any other changes.
That is my recommendation.
That is
yes.
my understanding. Yeah, no, I understand it clearly. It's just that if that meeting does not happen, we're looking at the current letter from Monday. The one that has currently 2 signatures. So your hope is that we're going to get another meeting before that, which makes sense for having a 4 o'clock meeting. So if we have a 4 o'clock meeting, that gives some time to talk I mean, I can run outside my building and be talking at 2:01 by phone. I just
Sounds
won't
good.
go anywhere. I'll be in the parking lot. So, all right, okay, so we have a tentative plan, but we have a definite emergency meeting at 4 o'clock with a single item, and that is to discuss the proposal letter between the mayor, city council, and the school committee. Okay. All right. Okay. Onward and upward. Other, do we have anything under other?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I have to find what it was. I'll need just a moment.
Okay. Anybody else while Megan's looking for whatever it is that she?
Chair,
Lori?
I may be able to be on just audio. I'm not sure if I can attend at 4. I
Okay.
will by phone.
Excellent.
Okay, I've got it. I wanted to give my PTO update. They are wrapping up the end of the year. They have done some really great stuff this year. They have had a really successful year. They're seeing a slow uptick in parent participation, which is great, but we always can use more parents joining the PTO, especially as we move to Mountain View School. They are having an end of the year PTO volunteer appreciation event. An email went out about that. They are getting stick pops for the kids for the last week of school. And I think their next meeting might be July 20th at 6:30 p.m. at the Brass Cat, which sounds like a fun meeting location. So I'm going to put that right on the old schedule. A separate other point that I wanted to bring up today is I just wanted to check in about a previous item that we had discussed not discussed, but it had been brought up in correspondence about busing children from various different, what's what I'm looking for, after school, before school programs for next year to Mountain View. I didn't know if that had been arranged and cleared up and dealt with yet.
I don't have a final budget yet, so I can't do much of anything.
Noted.
Speaking to that, and maybe this goes back to the financial 23 budget line item, then it does seem that we need to give some clarity to Dr. LeClaire in terms of her request around the June 15th deadline.
True.
Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
I mean, based on the good faith agreement that we have at this time, and conversations that we have had within the Finance Committee, I think that we need to clarify and confirm to the superintendent that the school committee plans on finding the means to fund the budget as we approved prior, so that that budget and those positions contained therein are what we want to move forward with. And we are going to continue to work with the city and the mayor's office and our other budgets, other funds, to be able to find a means to support that budget.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the budget has to, go ahead, Lori.
I just wanted to add, as somebody who has been in many districts and with non-professional status at times, I've been on the receiving end of many letters from different superintendents, and I'm sure you're very well versed in this, Dr. LeClaire, but there is a way to word it to alleviate so many fears that teachers who don't have professional status will be jumping onto School Spring to say that it's a legal notice that you can't guarantee, but it's with all hope of the school committee that we will be able to fund the salaries of our staff.
I want to guarantee that we're
Yeah.
going to fund our salaries, period. I do not want that salary line cut. We need every teacher and every staff person that we have. So I do not want that cut. I would rather use part of our reserve than to cut staff. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I am really dead set against us doing any changes to that line.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is that, I mean, it is unfortunate where we are. And yet where we are is that we have so far a good faith agreement that's in process, that is seeking to have support through the city council that will allow us the means to seek additional funding to cover that funding gap. The worst case scenario, if everything falls apart and the good faith pieces don't come together, it's going to put us in a financial cliff next year. And we will have to come back to and develop a budget for FY24 that's going to be asking more money of the city than we might otherwise need. But I think that at this point, for the best thing for us to go forward is to clarify to Dr. Leclerc that we plan to find the budget, find the funding to be able to support the positions and the budget that we approved. And we need to do some work on the back end to make all those dots cry. I know we need to put out a clear information about how we're going to fund those line items, but that we will fund them.
Yes.
And if we get nothing back, if the good faith is not followed through with by the mayor and the city council, and we are left with pulling entirely from our reserve funds, we are going to have a significant cliff next year, and a bigger significant cliff that we already know about when the ESSER funds go away in 2 years. So we are to some degree kicking the can down the road about what's going to have some serious impact for this district. But I think for right now, and I agree with you, Cindy, we need to be not wishy-washy with our
Crystal
teachers.
clear.
We need to be crystal clear that the people that we want to continue in this district are not in jeopardy of losing their positions next year, and that they will be continue to go forward as we budgeted and approved previously in the school committee.
Correct.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Of the committee, but also Superintendent Leclerc, when this conversation is happening and the direction is given to the superintendent, will the fact that that charter school reimbursement will be funded at 100% be a part of that and the effect on the teachers?
I don't believe we got the charter school reimbursement. I think you do. That goes into the
charter
city
school
coffers.
reimbursement goes right to schools.
We get the school choice. Is that what
Yep,
you're talking
and
about?
charter. I think this is the reason why we want an audit, to understand the money, but the charter school reimbursement is double. They fast forwarded the Student Opportunity Act, and my understanding that falls completely under Chapter 70 and Chapter 71. It was announced a couple of days ago.
Well, if it's chapter 70, we have that.
I'm sorry. If
If it's something higher and it's part of that chapter 70 money, that doesn't come to us unless you send it our way.
Charter reimbursement is a line. It's a receipt separate from Chapter 70 on the state cherry sheet.
But I'm saying to you that I don't believe it comes into our revolving account. You might want to check with Hadel.
Absolutely. And again, I'll just fall back on, this is why we need to have an audit. A good faith agreement needs to be broad because it is non-binding. We don't know what type of audit that we need. We don't understand between city and schools, the account and what goes through, what doesn't, and what can. So the city and city council, which I can't speak to her, but certainly the city and the mayors is equally committed to this. But wants to look at, which is only, these are taxpayer dollars. All of the taxpayers. And this committee is asking for me to turn a blind eye on that and give an additional increase. And I am asking to audit all the chart of accounts that overlap between city and school to make sure we're doing the right thing. And as far as
Okay,
the
I don't think any
fact,
request of you to turn a blind eye to anything has been made, actually, Mayor. So I don't think that,
I would
trying to
say,
clarify
I
which
will
money is going into which
disagree.
accounts
I'll
right now
disagree with that.
doesn't
You're
sound like
asking
it's
me to
actually
take
understood.
money
And
off
so
of the
instead of
table.
continuing,
Yeah.
Okay, we have two
I'm taking
people
this over.
talking.
I
One
would
at a
say,
time,
I'd like to
please.
call point of personal order. Maren was out of order by talking over repeatedly me. I think this goes to the fact, again, of misunderstanding of the accounts between school and city. And needs to be clarified. And I personally feel, as the mayor, blindsided because I do not know or understand the chart of accounts that the school has to operate under DESI. And I'm being asked to commit city funds without understanding that. That's all.
And that was the purpose of the whole proposal that we'll be talking about tomorrow, is to better the communication and understanding between all the areas.
And on the mayor's side, I put forward and requested the vote to happen in the same night, a school stabilization account to address specifically the cliff effect that has been pointed out over and over again. The whole city faces a cliff effect, not just schools. It's one budget, city budget.
All right, we will be talking about a lot of this tomorrow as we look at that letter. Do we have another other?
well, we haven't finished the topic that I've asked for, Cindy. So we asked for us to go back to the FY23 budget and to make clear to the superintendent that we will, in working with the still in process proposed good faith agreement between the mayor's city council and school committee, find a means to fund the budget that we have put forward and approved, so that the superintendent then understands which positions are being changed, reduced, added, all of that.
It's not something that we need a vote on, but we certainly, if there's anybody who feels differently, they should speak now. I mean, I'm very clear. I don't want that staff line cut. I want it to contain the staff that we planned on when we put this budget forward. Does anybody feel differently?
No, but I do think we should provide a vote for clarity to the community and a clarity to our superintendent that
I don't
is
mind doing that. I don't
past
mind
the
doing
11th
that.
hour, but we will continue to proceed with the budget that we approved and find a means to fulfill it.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that as a proposal. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we want to discuss it any further? Okay, Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, abstain.
okay, Mary,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle abstain.
Lori,
Lori Garcia, aye.
and Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Okay, all right. So Megan, we have matters for action.
Hold on, I'm all discombobulated. Let me pull that up now. Yikes. Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 6/9/2022 in the amount of $10,965.00.
I second that.
Okay, Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Shannon. Shannon, can you, there you go.
Shannon Dunham, aye. Sorry.
Mary? That's
Aaron
okay.
Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the school payroll dated 6/2/2022 in the amount of $597,000 and $18. I'm sorry, let me say that again. $597,018.02.
I second that.
Okay, Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 6/2/2022 in the amount of $512,338.48.
I second that.
Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
And lastly, I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 5/26/2022 in the amount of $700.
I second that.
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben, sorry, my big new funland just walked in the middle of my meeting. And is pushing up against me. Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
okay, Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Garcia, aye.
and Cindy Kuzensky, aye. All right, she's never done that. Okay, our next meeting, besides the one that I'm going to schedule right after this, which will be an emergency meeting, our next meetings will be August 23rd and September 13th. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
I would
motion
like-
to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night.
When is
Record.